Today I wanted to talk about gaming monitors and what type you should get. Now, obviously, all of this is going to depend on your graphics card, whether you're using integrated graphics or you're using discrete graphics. This is all going to depend on your graphics card's capability and the type of ports that it has. If your graphics card has display ports on it, you should get a monitor that supports DisplayPort. DisplayPort supports higher refresh rates, has better latency, and the connector is better too because it actually has locking pins instead of HDMI where it can pop out if you look at it incorrectly. In addition to, you should make sure that your graphics card can effectively support games in the resolution that you want to play at the refresh rate that your monitor's at. For example, if you have a really old graphics card, like let's say, I don't know, like a GTX 1030 or something, is it going to be good for 1080p gaming? Absolutely. And if you get a high refresh rate 1080p monitor, you're probably going to be in good shape. Obviously, that still depends on the title, though. There's going to be some titles where it's just not good at playing unless you really turn the quality down. But obviously, in that case, too, you'd probably be using HDMI. But that would be an instance where a 1080p monitor at a reasonable refresh rate, like I would say at least 120, would be perfectly fine. If you have like a 50 series RTX, for example, you probably want to go up to a 2K monitor or 1440p. You will notice a big difference between 1080p and 1440p, but in my opinion, in most games, in most situations, you're probably not going to notice a huge difference between 1440p and 4K other than the amount of resources it uses on your graphics card. Obviously, my advice is always going to be buy the best hardware you can that's compatible with your setup that you can afford. But if you're on a budget, like most of us are, I would say, the minimum that you probably want to go with to have a good gaming experience would be a monitor that supports at least 120 hertz, maybe even bump it up a little bit to 144. And if your graphics card supports it, at least do one that's in 1440p. Actually, I would argue that even if your graphics card doesn't support it, you should get a monitor that supports 1440p. For if you ever upgrade your graphics card, then you already have your 1440p monitor, and obviously you can still play it in lower resolutions. I think refresh rate's probably going to be more important than the resolution, at least when you're going from 1080p to 1440p. 60 and 75 hertz monitors are just not very good, especially once you've used a higher refresh rate one. When you revert down to that lower frame rate, the game almost seems unplayable. I think 144 is really that sweet spot. And honestly, I know some people can, but I think most gamers really can't notice the difference after about 144 anyway. So if you can afford it, go up a little bit to the 144. I would say a monitor size of like at least 27 inches is going to be good too. And yeah, that's about it. Just make sure you do your research and you get a good quality DisplayPort cable and a good quality monitor.